I think ultimately it comes down to your mind when you get to 35k and you're holding pace. It's just down to those last 7. If you can keep going through that wall, I wanted to prove to myself that I can do 2 very different things and do them well. I'm most happy when I'm being challenged and a little bit stressed and a little bit pushed for time and not sure if it's going to work, not sure if it's going to happen, and a bit uneasy. That's where it's the most exciting for me. If you are new to anything, being consistent in it will break through any kind of mental barrier or any kind of negative thought that you have about it. My name's Milo. I'm an ex ski racer, now runner, lifter / semi-unemployed, as most of us seem to be in this world, / trying to do everything and balance everything and live a kind of normal-ish London life. And yeah, really looking forward to this kind of conversation, and looking forward to see kind of what challenges we can come up with this year and smash.
You say kind of like coming from that background of skiing to where you are now. How did that transition kind of happen? Talk me through that whole process and story.
Yeah, I mean, skiing was very much a sport that's based around obviously the winter climate. So 6 months, 7 months of the year, I was away training, and it was very much a case of when I was training, the style of training is very different. So it's highly strength-based plyometrics, which actually, looking back on it, led me very well into running and kind of created a foundation where my legs and my joints could take a lot of strain through the basically intense amount of strength training that I'd done for it. And having since left ski racing purely due to the fact that ski racing is not, they don't get paid like footballers do. So having left that sport, it kind of just created this kind of void where I was so competitive, and now I've got nothing. How can I channel that? And picked up other sports such as bodybuilding and now running, where I can really channel that competitive edge and absolutely love it.
It's interesting you say that about kind of the strength side of things, because I remember talking to Johnny Davis before his tube run, and he kind of said exactly the same thing as you've just said, that sort of strength base before going into running. Do you really think that's something that's kind of that's done you in good stead, I guess?
I think 100%. I think in terms of injury prevention, it's critical, especially if you are someone that is heavier, taller. I'm 6'4", and when I started running, I was like way over 100 kilos. So having like a good foundation base in terms of quad, hamstring, glute strength, calves, and like decent flexibility for me was probably the reason that I only got kind of shin splints and was able to deal with that relatively easily. And yeah, I think foundation of strength for runners. I mean, runners traditionally do not have my build. I don't necessarily look like a runner. So it's kind of finding a middle ground where I can do running and lift and do everything in a safe way that prevents injury, but also get the benefit of everything.
May I feel you with the whole build situation. I'm 6'3", similar, like a little bit heavier than normal. But one of the things about running that is so beautiful, and it seems to have picked up over the past couple of years as well, is that kind of feeling that running genuinely is for everybody, whether that's pace-wise or build-wise or, you know, kind of distance-wise. Everybody can do it, which is the brilliant thing, I think.
100%. And I think that there's no real barrier to entry. And I think that's why has been growing so much, especially in London, even in the last year. I mean, the amount of run clubs. I was speaking with Jenny, who runs the Girls That Run Club, and it's just crazy to see the kind of turnout that they get, and how many people it's their first ever run, or they want to run their first 5K, and it's winter, it's January, it's dark all the time, and still people are getting out, which I think is amazing.
The social side of it seems beautiful as well now. Like, that is really building. The fact people are, you know, not going out and getting on it on Saturday night and instead getting up early on a Sunday morning to do a long run. Like, that is something that seems to have changed, and again is like really amazing to see that social side just grow.
I think the social side is probably one of the biggest factors. I mean, I try not to host a run club. I host a high rocks club and like a kind of conditioning side of things. And it's giving people an excuse on a Friday night or on a Saturday night to say to the people that they probably wanted to say it to already, that they're not coming out, they're not coming to the pub because they've got to get up early, they've got to go and do something else. And it's almost giving people an excuse to meet other like-minded people that they can go out for food afterwards. They can say like, okay, let's go for a coffee in the morning instead of going for a bottomless brunch, and let's run to get that coffee, and then we'll like meet at wherever it is. And it's a way more of a social activity, and I think that it's something that is only going to continue to grow, especially coming into summer this year as well.
Something I saw on your Instagram actually, which I really loved, was a reel that you posted about drinking. And it was like, I don't really see myself drinking in 2024. Like, if it happens, it happens, but I don't kind of see it. Was that something that was a decision, or was that something that kind of has just kind of happened as this fitness journey has progressed?
When I used to diet a couple of years ago, I would basically just cut out drinking because it's just, I mean, liquid calories make life harder when you're dieting. So I started doing it then, and then I was never really like, oh my God, I really need a drink. I was never like that. I never kind of pushed to go to the pub. I just like the social aspect of drinking. That's really lovely. I love the idea of going to a Sunday pub roast, whatever. You sit there with your friends all afternoon and just very cozy. But for me, it was never about the drinking. So removing alcohol in a kind of very short-term environment was very easy. Then doing dry Jan last year, I basically went to dry Jan, then Feb, and then I think I had a drink in March. And then from March till December, I didn't drink, and only really drank after my marathon. I had a Guinness. But it's like you said, I don't put any pressure on myself to be completely sober. But I also don't feel the need to drink with certain situations that I don't really want to be in. I don't want to be in a situation where I feel uncomfortable so that I need to drink, or I need to have a drink to stomach the people that I'm with. I'd much rather just not be in that situation. And I think that really comes down to it. It's like I'll very happily have a glass of wine on New Year's with some of the best people I know, and that's lovely, and that's how I want to do it. But it's each their own, really.
I don't think there's much better than a Guinness after a marathon. I'll be honest. I do
agree.
quite like that little reward of a Guinness after a marathon. Split the G,
stunning.
enter the next race. We're good to go.
Exactly. No, you can't really beat that. I would say it was a really, really good pint. It was great.
That's kind of how I am with it as well. It's like I never want to say that I'll never drink, because you sometimes have those situations where for some reason it just adds to the element, whether you're with friends in a certain place, whether you're after a race, or you're in another situation like New 100%. Year's, like you say. It's like, have the option, but also at the same time never let that, well, for me and for yourself, it sounds like you never kind of let that get the biggest part of your life. It's an add-on to a situation, exactly. Not the situation.
Exactly. It's not the make or break, and I think it's only going to enhance the situation. And when you're with the right people, I think it can enhance it. But I think there have been plenty bad decisions and bad remarks made under the influence of alcohol. So I'd rather stay away from that.
Preach. One thing I wanted to talk about was the Men's Physique and marathon. I loved that. I thought that was like so different. Thanks. Such a kind of different play on things. Where did that idea first come from? And kind of explain to anybody that doesn't know what you did, exactly what the whole process was.
Yeah. So I come from a kind of bodybuilding background pre-running. I only really got into running last year, and I always wanted to compete in bodybuilding, but I think a lot of bodybuilders have this kind of chronic body dysmorphia of, I'm not big enough, I'm not lean enough, I'm not whatever enough. So I thought, you know what, this year, whatever my internal monologue is saying, I'm just going to do it. Like, I need to see what I can accomplish, what my mind can accomplish, if I can push myself this far to get on stage and just be in a room where the light is on me and I've dialed in for however long. And I ended up doing a 6-month cut, which is a diet of restriction. On average, lost about 1 kilo per week. from my heaviest weight, which was about 117 kilos. So it was a big weight loss. And then during that period, I actually was at Johnny's run, but his launch for his run club, his Run the Marathon, the line, and I met Gibb, and we were talking. I said, you know what, I might do a half marathon on the same day because I don't know anyone that's done that. And he said, you know what, like, it doesn't sound as good as a marathon, does it? I was like, oh, it doesn't. I agree, but it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
And then as soon as that idea was kind of planted, that was about 6 weeks before the actual event, and I thought, you know what, I can't half-ass this. I've got to commit. So yeah, I kind of just was like, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be me on absolutely no body fat, nothing. My feet are hurting just because the amount of fat that I've got left in my feet, but we're going to get it done. And I think it really comes down to your mindset at that point. It's like, I wasn't physically prepared. I haven't been carb fueling. I hadn't been able to do everything that I'd wanted to be doing. I haven't been able to do any of the peak weeks or anything like that. But it showed I wanted to prove to myself that I can do two very different things and do them well, and to inspire other people that you don't have to limit yourself into being like, oh, I'm a sprinter. You can do other things than sprinting. You can put on muscle. You can go and train in different ways and have fun with it. I think that's ultimately the thing, is just having fun and seeing what you enjoy. And for me, that was it. It was like, let's try everything. And this was the first thing that I wanted to do.
It's dead interesting saying about, like, Gibbs saying half marathon doesn't sound as good as marathon, which is totally right. It doesn't sound as good as marathon, does it? But that idea is almost the scariest part, isn't it? And I think for a lot of people, they get put off by the idea. Yeah, don't get me wrong. In the moment, it's very, very difficult. But like, you have that now for the rest of your life to look back on. Sometimes people just get scared off by the idea of going to a run club, the idea of running a marathon, the idea of coming to a high rocks class. But like, if you have that idea, I think often maybe that's the thing you should follow through on, if that makes sense.
100%. And it's you almost need to be convinced by someone else sometimes to give you a little bit of push. It is quite hard though if you are living in a city by yourself and you're kind of like, oh, I don't really know anyone. How can I get into it? So I fully understand. And sometimes you've just got to bite the bullet and get on the tube and go and rock up and maybe have a coffee beforehand to make sure you're hyped up. And I fully respect that, because that was me. Like I was never one for joining a club. I never had done a run club since hosting my own one. I'd never been to one before that. So it's a nerve-wracking experience. And I think if you can go along with friends and make it less nerve-wracking for that first one, then it opens a whole world of sport, because it makes everything so much more accessible.
What was it like going from doing that challenge yourself to then like racing?
That was because the main goal for that challenge was to get on stage and then to just finish the marathon, just to allow me to get the job done was the goal. And then it shifted the plan. It was, okay, well, now we've done that. Now we've got to go for time. But this is my first proper marathon. And I'm quite maybe ambitious or delusional. I, for some reason, thought that...
Both are good.
Yeah, I just had in mind, I was training for sub 4. And then I thought, you know what? I mean, I was kind of in this bubble of people where they were all just like, oh, I'm going for 3:10, 3:05. I was like, how hard can 3:30 be? I thought, you know what? Let's just give it a crack. So did a couple of kind of simulation tests and started increasing the intensity, and I had about 8 weeks between those two dates, or about six to 8 weeks. And on the day, it just basically came down to just holding pace, keeping nutrition on point, and it started storm. The rain came coming down, horizontal winds, but I think ultimately it comes down to your mind when you get to 35k and you're holding pace. It's just down to those last 7. If you can keep going through that wall. For me, that was all I needed to do when I kind of had 5K left, I was like, I've got this. Like, even if I have to walk, I can get this done. So yeah, finishing at a time sub 3:30 for me, end up doing 3:24. I was super proud of. And I think this year is going to be a year where I push that in terms of my goals. That's definitely one of them, to get a lot quicker.
You're obviously one of those people that achieves a goal and then straight away sets themselves another goal. And on that post from Goodwood, you put 3:24, 3:15 next. And I remember seeing that thinking, Jesus, mate, just give yourself a break. Like, you've just done an incredible time there. But you're straight away thinking, right, the next thing. Is that kind of what you've always been like?
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of finding it very hard to settle. And I think without a kind of direction, a lot of us that are kind of very driven by goals, we can feel kind of lost. Which was so good when I had finished the competition of the bodybuilding and the marathon. I still had the marathon to train for. So the kind of post-competition blues for the first one weren't too bad. It lasted about a week, but I still knew that I had to get up, I had to train. But after the marathon, where I did the 3:24, it was like just everything just kind of went, and I was like, oh, I'm not training for anything. I'm not doing anything. Found it hard to go out for a run, found it hard to get out of bed. And I was just like, what? I need to book something in. I need to do it. Not just for my mind, essentially, just to be like, I need to be working towards something. It's where I'm happiest. And it's where a lot of us that kind of are pushing ourselves are happiest, when you're like a little bit uncomfortable and making progress. So yeah, I set the goal this year to do sub 3:10 now, which is a challenge for sure. But I want to do it in a way that is kind of tying into something that's personal to me, whether that's running in London. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I'm still kind of just praying that I can somehow get into London, or running in a place that means a lot to me. So I think that's the goal for this year. I've also then just found out I'm doing the High Rocks in Manchester in 2 weeks' time. So we've got to have a lot of things on. I only found out about that 2 days ago. So yeah, I think that's it. It's like, I'm most happy when I'm being challenged and a little bit stressed and a little bit pushed for time and not sure if it's going to work, not sure if it's going to happen, and a bit uneasy. That's where it's the most exciting for me.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think having something to look forward to kind of puts you in the best place?
I think that from skiing, there was always like a competitive drive. Like, it's a very individual sport. So I'm very self-dependent because of that. And for me, whatever that race I've done or competition I've done, it's never going to be good enough, because I'm always comparing myself to myself. I'm not comparing myself to other people. I try not to do that, because we're all built differently. We've all got different things going on. So it's just a constant rivalry with myself. I don't think I'll necessarily ever be completely satisfied. I'm very proud of where I've come to. I'm very proud of where I've come from. And I've achieved things that I never thought I would. But I still think there's a lot more room to improve.
High Rocks is another one of those things that has seemingly done what running's done over the past sort of 24 months and just exploded. Why do you think that is? Why has High Rocks become such a big thing?
I think the High Rocks has exploded a lot because people think it's CrossFit, because it kind of looks kind of CrossFit-y. But the most amazing part about High Rocks is that it removes quite a lot of the CrossFit high skill elements. Whereas CrossFit, if you go to a CrossFit gym, you say, I want to join, and you get put in a class and you'd have to do clean and jerks and snatches. The level of injury risk is so high that you're basically guaranteed an injury. But with High Rocks, it's mainly kind of station based. So there's a lot of running involved. It's essentially a running sport. And then you have stations in between. So you have kind of lunges, you have wall balls, all these kind of different functional movements. But there is really no barrier to fitness entry, because all of the movements can be completed either with your body weight or with an additional weight. Whatever you decide to do in terms of the kind of scalability and the speed and the weight that you do the exercise, that is completely up to you. And that's when, like, I host a Saturday High Rocks kind of day, essentially, which kind of exploded in the last few months. But the main reason I think that people come is, first of all, the social. I think it's fantastic. Like run clubs, you're there to have a great time, meet people that are like yourself, but also the workouts are really savage, but you are pushing yourself to a level that you're comfortable with. We're not telling you that you need to go and do 500 reps. It's as hard as you make it, but often people will push themselves really hard, and it's amazing to see because they know that it's a Saturday, they're there with great people, they see other people doing the same, and it's kind of like a really good community of people that are just sending it, getting sweaty together, and then afterwards we all have like a coffee and some pastries. It's great.
You've got a new series starting on your Instagram, the London Grind, and
Yeah.
it feels like you're the sort of person that, I'm stealing a phrase off Philly Bowden, marathon runner here, you love the grind, don't you? You absolutely love that, like every day pushing yourself, whether it's getting up for a goal or just getting up to kind of grind the day out. Is that something that you've always had, that sort of willingness to grind and want to grind?
I think there's definitely always been a kind of want and not necessarily knowing what I want. I was like, I'm missing something. And I had a relationship a few years ago where it wasn't stimulating or beneficial for either of us. And I kind of fell out of that burning desire of doing anything, just became very complacent. And having left that relationship, that has never, it just ignited that spark back in me to kind of improve myself, because I'd kind of let myself go, both physically, emotionally, and mentally. And getting back to a stage where I was strong, I was fit, I was achieving my goals, I was doing well at work, was such a big motivation for me. And it just, once you start on that train, it's so hard to kind of stop and get off. So I absolutely love it. As you say, like, I love making people feel better about themselves. And if I can do that in my own way, through content or through coaching or hosting events, then for me, that's like the most important thing.
You've obviously got these short-term goals, that 3:10 marathon, which sounds mad to say it's a short-term goal, but it's something I know that you'll achieve. An overarching goal is something different, something maybe that will take years and years to achieve. Is that something you have? Do you look forward to 5 years' time, or is it kind of just that day-to-day at the moment?
I think 5 years' time for me would be to kind of grow this community that we've got at the moment at Revive, and do a lot more events, as well as kind of open a few different venues potentially. I don't know, I'm just kind of airing these kind of thoughts into my the ether of things that I've thought about. So yeah, there are definitely a few plans that I have in mind. The thing is that in this day and age, like, your goals can be achieved so much quicker than you maybe think due to kind of social media. You have something that blows up and suddenly your life kind of changes, and I've seen that through different other people as well. So the short-term goals, as you say, are in place, and the long-term ones are kind of dependent on the short-term as well. But growing the community, helping as many people as possible, and establishing a kind of base for Revive, for me, would be an absolute win.
In terms of social media, what's that like in both sort of spaces, when you post something and it does really well, or if you post something and you think it's good and it doesn't do so well? Like, tell me, like, kind of your feelings on both of those things.
It used to affect me a lot. Like, I both the highs and the lows are incredible. When you post something and it does really well, you think, oh my God, why? And sometimes it's the one that you don't think is going to go well, and often it's the one that you think, oh, I don't know if I should post this. This is not really kind of my style of content, and you post it and it does the best. You think, why? But the euphoria of that when you're first starting out is so addictive that you can kind of really kind of focus so much on the numbers, and you can get really distracted. And I had a chat with a few of my other friends that also make content, and we were saying how, for me, I'm not posting for likes, for comments, for follows. It's simply about improving my posting metric. So if I can get my posts from 420 or whatever it is now to 700 by the end of this year, I know that I've been consistent in the way that I deliver content and deliver value. The benefit of that for other people is that they will see that value, and hopefully in turn share that, follow that, whatever it may be. But the only thing that I can control is the quality and quantity that I put out. So it's kind of taken a while to get to that stage and to be able to look at a bad video and think, okay, why did that perform bad? Not be annoyed at why it performed bad, but what are the things I can take from that? Was it the watch time? Was my hook not strong enough? Was the content not higher produced? Was the storyline a bit weak? Was the background too dark? Was it too bright? And it's kind of looking at it in a more analytical way, less emotional, because this is my work now. I have to look at it in a subjective view and not get too emotionally attached to it, even though it is something that I have to put a lot of emotion into. Looking at what I get back has to be objective. So it's taken a while to get there, but I think now we're in a place where likes and comments and follows don't really matter. It's more so, what are you putting out there? How are you helping people?
Was that hard to accept though? That kind of change in mindset?
Yeah, it's super hard. And still now when you have a bad video, it's like, oh God, put so much work in. But then you kind of quickly get out of it and you think, okay, that's fine. On to the next one. And I think that's the ability of being like able to succeed in social media is simply persistence breaks resistance. Like you will get to where you need to be if you consistently post, if you consistently do it over a long period of time. As soon as you stop, as soon as you fail, the only time you do that is when you stop posting. And it is how it is. It's what the big companies want. It's what Facebook is, what Meta want. We've got to be active. We've got to be online. We've got to be inspiring, and we've got to be making content the best we can. And if we're not, then people are going to know, and it's not going to reward us in the same way. So I've got to treat it like work, because it is work, and also try and enjoy it along the way and take time away from it. That's why Sunday for me is a day where I don't use social media. I post, I do that, and then I leave it. Because it's nice to have a break from your work. It's the same thing. It's something that now is molding so much into our daily fabric that often it doesn't seem like work, but we're spending 6 hours on it every day.
You mentioned that helping other people a couple of times during this chat, and that is something that obviously you're doing. And, you know, for somebody that maybe is your content, might come down to a high rocks class for the first time, might, you know, go out for a run for the first time. What's that feeling like when you know that maybe you're kind of the catalyst to getting these people to start their own journeys?
Yeah, it's quite surreal. I think it was something that was never kind of around when I was kind of starting out. So to be able to give, particularly people that are new to fitness, new to a different type of sport, and see them come in and go, oh, do you know what? Like, this has changed my whole perception on high rocks, and like, I've never done a group class, and this is great. And then the best thing is when I hear from the week before, when they come in and they say, oh, I went actually out for a coffee with so-and-so this week. It was lovely. We had a great day out. Or we actually trained in the gym together. Or I went and did another run club with a couple of the members in here and just had a good chat. And it's like, that for me is the most important thing. And it's something that I wish that I had starting out, because that sense of community is so strong. And even in the group chat that I have, everyone's kind of just asking, oh, is anyone around for a run this weekend if there's nothing on? Or over Christmas, there were people in London saying they were going to be running, and it's just a great place for people to kind of come together. And it's such a big part of my life. And yeah, fully love it. I will never ever be not proud of that.
You mentioned kind of like the personal experience of, you know, getting to London, not knowing a huge amount of people at that time. Do you think that has kind of made this feeling tenfold, because you can kind of see yourself in some of these people maybe?
100%, especially the kind of younger people or graduates that are coming in, moving to London. They are way more switched on than me. They don't drink. Age 20, 21, I was drinking a lot and doing just working in sales. So living an unhealthy lifestyle. So seeing people that are so young coming in and just like making use of their weekends in such a great way and meeting great people, because there are not a lot of people in your kind of early 20s that aren't drinking and aren't going out to the pub and going to infernos and doing all these things. So having space for them where they are very new to London and it's their first couple of months and they think, oh, I've just landed here or whatever, I don't know anyone. Having a kind of safe space for them to come to on a weekend and just feel accepted and comfortable is so important.
And there'll be people listening to this, mate, that have never laced up a pair of trainers, never gone out for a run, been to an event, been to a high rocks class. We'll finish with this. What will kind of be your, I wouldn't say advice, or kind of just statement to them, I guess? What would you say to them?
I would say that if you are new to anything, being consistent in it will break through any kind of mental barrier or any kind of negative thought that you have about it. And I say this to people when they start in the gym, they always say, what's your biggest advice? And it's not to go out and buy lifting straps. It's not to go out and buy all the equipment. It is to simply think, if I keep doing this for the next year, regardless if I run 500 meters a day or 10 miles a day, I can look back in a year and I will have learned so many lessons during that period of time that the only thing that matters is being consistent. The only thing that matters is getting out the door, lacing up your shoes. Even if I walk, even if I jog, if I run, whatever it is, if I do something each day that I'm going to be look back and be proud of, and it's going to build up that consistency. It's just like an engine that keeps going and going and going. So that's one thing that look back a year from now and think, I'm glad I started today. And that's my biggest piece of advice.